Hello, welcome to 3D Design, Art 1130, first summer block. My name is Andrew Kosrock. I'm going to be the one who is telling you what to do and making completely and entirely arbitrary decisions regarding your grades. Oh, what a jerk. This is kind of an odd format, doing this entirely online. And I know that sometimes with art classes that can be very difficult because, well, we're as artists, we like to communicate, and it can be very tough having that part of the process taken away from us. So for this course, we will be meeting, and I say that with air quotes, every Monday and Thursday. Monday mornings at 8 for about an hour and a half or so, and Thursday mornings at about 8:30. But all those will be recorded. We'll put them on our YouTube channel, and you can look at them at any time you want. But we do need some sort of physical, or not physical, but some sort of vocal interaction so we can get some questions aired, get some questions answered, and go over the quizzes and things like that. For attendance, what you will need to do, we're going to have about 12 of those meetings during the course of this term. You will need to attend 5 of those events live. Now, in addition to those 12, if 2 or 3 people have similar questions and we need to have a meeting at another time, say like a Thursday evening or Tuesday evening, something like that, or on a Saturday afternoon, we can coordinate that, record that, and that would count as well if you attended that live, if you were one of the people who needed to ask questions. In each of those meetings, I will put 3 code words that you will need to let me know, because as I mentioned, part of the attendance, you'll need to go to 5 of those live, but you can attend all the others at any time. You can watch them at any time. You'll just need to email me something like, I watched the meeting for the second Monday on this date, and these are the 3 code words. And then that will count for your attendance. And you can watch those while you're working, or you have them buzzing in your ear on the background while you're working on your projects, and that is completely fine. I'll clarify that a little bit more on our meeting Monday, but I think that's how it looks like we're gonna do things right now. This may change. I'm also taking a class for faculty members to learn how to do a better job doing online instruction. And as part of that, I ask for your patience, but also if things need to change, we'll talk about that and we'll make the changes so that it works better for everybody, hopefully. My name is Andrew Kosrock. I've been doing artsy-fartsy type stuff for quite a while. I've been a professional stained glass designer, curator, repairer, fixer and builder for almost 40 years. I do stained glass sculpture. You can look my name up and on Google and see different things that I've done. As part of the process of exploring art, I found that provides a wonderful point of connection. And so in addition to doing art, I am also an interfaith chaplain. And I have worked with people from a number of different cultures and religious backgrounds over the years. A few years ago, I was given a fellowship to study art in Iran for a while, and that was super cool. I've even, if you can imagine how boring this might be, but I even helped to write a book on architecture in Kerman City in Iran, covering about the 18th century or so. So if any of you are suffering from insomnia, let me know, and I will send you the cover, and maybe that will help. I've been exploring the ideas of 3D design for quite a while, and that may seem kind of odd because I do stained glass, but I started off as a mathematician and engineer. I found watercolor in stained glass, and I thought that those were very fascinating, very intriguing media. And my schooling at BYU, they weren't really interested in having me develop a degree around stained glass unless I could turn it sculptural. So I became very interested in sculptural stained glass. My own sculpture involves a lot of sewing and things like that, sewing the stained glass together, doing odd things with it. Because of my mathematician and engineering background, I really enjoy uh, just the challenges of geometry and exploring that as well. So my sculptures look very mathematical and rather pattern oriented, I guess. And believe it or not, I am also a certified alchemist. Believe it or not, there is actually a governing body that awards such a thing to people. And the reason I became an alchemist is because I found out that I could. The reason that it looks like I have a halo a little bit around me is because of this sci-fi fantasy background on my team's screen. I don't know how to control it at all. I think it looks kind of odd, but um, if you saw where I actually work, it's not the cleanest of environments. So I think this background is an awful lot better than what's there. I've taught at BYU and other places for several years. One thing that I've really enjoyed about coming to UVU is the students here, more than any other school I've worked at, have a very strong perspective on professionalism. Almost every one of the artists in the classes that I've taught have been commissioning artists. They have done work for people. And that gives you a unique perspective regarding professionalism and quality of work that is really wonderful to see. And I think, and the questions that I get are from that kind of perspective as well. And it's really great to work with people like you. The reason I mention that is that this block, we are condensing a semester's worth of work in half the time. And most of the students who get A's are going to find that they are working 16 to 18 hours a week on this course and all the things around it. That can be a challenge when you also have a full-time job. And I know where you sit. I was in my graduate work at BYU. I had a full-time job. I was teaching 2 classes and I was carrying a full load all at the same time. It can be a challenge. And but one thing that I've discovered consistently with working here at UVU is that the students here really thrive on challenges. I'm not trying to make your life difficult, I'm not saying that, but I am saying that I'm confident that you will be able to not only do all the work that we have, but you will do it admirably, do it really well, and come out the other end grateful that you took the time to take this course. In this course, we have 7 principal modules. 6 of them are project modules, and the 7th is a research module. The 6 project modules are designed to help you navigate finding your way through 3D design, the three-dimensional universe. And this is not a computer design course. I also did computer animation for a while. In the 90s, I was a computer programmer and I designed fonts for word processing programs. And the reason I do what I do now is I came across a book that described art techniques in the 14th and 15th century by cathedral builders. And I was so enamored of that that I started learning how to make my own pigments and make my own tools and things like that. But anyways, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about here, so don't take notes on that. The 6 projects build on each other and are designed to help you move away from two-dimensional thinking and try to build the synapses and pathways that you need to embrace three-dimensional design. This can be really painful sometimes and can be really frustrating. It's important to know that this class is not designed to help you fill your portfolio with masterpieces. The grading, it is an art class, so a lot of the times it seems like the grading is entirely arbitrary, but it's not. The grading is based on workmanship, attention to detail, and attention to the specifications and parameters of the assignments. It is not, the grading is not built on mastery of the things, because for the most part, 90% of the students that take this class, this is really the first time that you're doing things in the physical three-dimensional world. And it would be completely unfair to expect you to master the different media that we're going to be working with. Those of you who have your kits already have looked through, and it just seems like a preschool exploded. And that's perfectly fine. It's there's a lot of random stuff in there, apparently random, but they are designed, each of those things are designed to be used specifically for the different projects that we have, and each of them will come in use. For each of the projects, when you went through and kind of explored some of the modules, I think module 1 I just put up just a short while ago. As you explore it, you'll see that there are different components, and this is the same for each of the 6 project-based modules. The components involve research, writing, making something, posting it on a discussion board and making comments about other people's work, and then also doing a work log. The work log is really important. Each of the modules, each of those 7 modules, the 6 project one, the research one, will all have a work log component. And aside from being mandated by the department, there's a very strong reason for that. From the latest things that I've read about neuroplasticity and growing new pathways in the brain, one of the things that intrigued me is that there's a certain time component to developing those new neural pathways. And what's fascinating to me is, I don't know if all of you have experienced, because you're artists, all of you have experienced the state of flow, where you kind of come to your senses after you realize that you've been working on the same thing for 3 or 4 hours. You completely forgot where you were. You sense no passage of time. And the only reason now that you know the time has passed is because either the sun has gone down, or you can no longer feel an arm or a leg because it's gone asleep, because you haven't moved. You've just been doing your art for so long. What's fascinating is that state of flow also accompanies sometimes growth of new neuronic pathways. As we're working on these modules, I'd like you to consider very seriously taking, as you work on a specific project, taking a block of time of at least an hour and a half, if not more, to work on that at a time. And I realize you're going to be working on it a little bit here and there throughout the week, throughout the days. And that's totally fine, but try and take at least an hour and a half block and really concentrate on seeing if you can't enter that state of flow again as you're doing this. These work logs are important for a couple reasons. One is to help you kind of keep track of that time spent learning something new, and trying to keep track of those times where you may find yourself falling into that state of flow. But also, as professional artists, your time is very valuable, and you need to be able to keep track of that consistently. Many of you already know the importance of this, and as you move forward in your careers, it will be very important. And this work log is an opportunity for you to kind of demonstrate and grow that skill a little bit. Each of the 6 project modules should take about 10 hours to do. And the work log grading is going to be based on the percentage of those 10 hours that you get in. If you find that you're all finished with everything and you've only spent 8 hours, I would recommend going back and revisiting the project for an additional 2 and work on it. If you're done with it, build another one. Because the time aspect of working on these projects is very important to, again, the growing of those neuronic pathways and the overall learning process. Also, it's very important at the end of the work log to put a total for how many hours that you've worked. There is a model work log that is in the first module, and I would pay attention to that and follow that as best you can. The seventh module is the research module, and portions of that, I've split it into 4 parts, and portions of that will be released or published throughout the um, course of the term, so that you don't feel overloaded with all the stuff that you have to do. That one is going to take, actually it's going to take closer to 12 to 18 hours to complete. And I will release the second part next week, so you can kind of be aware of that and fit it in to your schedule. And what I'm expecting, what I've seen from students in the past is that they will work on a project until they get to a point where they're tired and they need to do something else, and they'll turn to the research project, look at that for a while until their brain resets, as it were, and then they'll go back to the project, and that's perfectly fine. So hopefully you'll weave that in throughout the course of the term, so you aren't overloaded with having to do all the research at the same time at the very end. Part of this research project is born from the idea that UVU is unique in the country in that there is a very strong focus on globalism, interculturalism, and an awareness of intersectionality. It's very rare that each of us only have 1 or 2 identifiers that we use to describe ourselves. Most of the time, we have several different components that come into play. For example, describing myself, I'm an artist, that's one of them. I work with glass as my art medium, that's another one. I do kind of exploratory art when I deal with issues about transformation and intersectionality of faith systems, that's another one. I'm also a husband and a father, that's another one. I am a white male, that's another one. I work full-time and I have multiple jobs, and those which are identifiers that are very common in the United States today. So that's just a few of them. My family comes from Slovenia, that's another one, with lots of roots in Montana. I was born in Washington, and I transplanted here when I went to BYU. So those are several of my identifiers. When you go into the research project, I'd like you to think about yourself and list, and you never have to show them to me or anything, but list for yourself at least 10 of those identifiers, thinking about them, who you are. And as you go through that list of 75 artists, find somebody who is not like you, who doesn't look like you, who isn't where you're from, who isn't from where you're from, rather. Try to find somebody who's different from you, but also try to find one of these people who are different from you whose art resonates with your own or with you on some level. It doesn't have to be anything that you do. Most of these are, like I said, 3D artists, and most of the students that take this course are going to be 2D artists, but maybe they do something that you've never seen before, but that you really resonate with. And that's the kind of artist that I would like you to find and pick, and then use that person to learn about during the research project. Now, if sometimes there may not be enough information on the artist available for you to do the research project, and if you find you need to switch to another artist, that's not a big deal. I would like you to identify the artist and put that you want to work with in the discussion board as soon as you can, so that everybody knows that somebody else already has that name, or they need to look in a slightly different direction. One of the short modules is labeled tool using or applying the tools of artistic critique. I know that in my experience, and this may be yours as well, I usually cringe when I hear the word critique, because I associate that with criticism. I associate that with people telling me why all the things that I've done can fail, or what are the elements that I've screwed up. And that's not what critique is, and that's not what critique should be. In the opening reading of that module, I have attached a couple different links. One is to a video where 2 art historians are talking about a Henry Moore sculpture, applying the tools of artistic critique. And the other one will lead you to a list of videos in previous courses where people are applying the tools of artistic critique either to their own work or somebody else's. And I would like you to have that buzzing in the background as well. What is fascinating about the Henry Moore sculpture, I want you to think about this for just a second. Have you ever come across a piece of art that you absolutely hated or detested? And then over time you revisit it, you see new things, and then now when you look back at it, you realize that you actually like it. What's fascinating about applying these two art historians applying the tools of artistic critique to the Henry Moore sculpture is that as they are looking at it and examining it, they discover more and more about it. And that's one of the fascinating things about the process of rigorous examination of something. Not to tear it apart, but to looking for specific elements and trying to figure out how those elements fit together and thinking about the object and talking about it. What is fascinating about this process is that as we intend to look more, we see more. As we go through the process of describing more, we understand more. And it's actually a very fascinating thing where at the end of this process, we can usually see and appreciate more about a piece than when we first went into it. I remember years ago, the first time I saw a Henry Moore piece, I was completely confused and it kind of nauseated me. And now, having seen them and really explored what's going on visually, I find that I really enjoy looking at Henry Moore stuff, where 30, 35 years ago, like I said, it kind of turned my stomach. This is the interesting thing. There's always going to be those things that we see differently as time passes. And that's because art is, or the evidence of art making, the objects of art, they are all moments in conversation. And even though the artist has produced something that they have left behind, they've walked away from it, and it's just there by itself, it's not complete by itself. It only becomes complete when we actually look at it and start thinking about it. Because then we engage somewhat in a conversation between the artist and their work and ourselves. So I would like you to think about that too. That the art may not ever be truly complete until we can actually visit it and think about it. When you're asked to apply the tools of artistic critique in your comments, what I want you to do is just, when you make a comment, think about one or two of those questions and try to answer them in the comment. Like, for example, I really enjoy how you've used these textures here because it's developed a passage of interest that really makes me want to look at the sculpture more closely. Using language like that is so much more helpful and useful for further work than to say, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. You know, where does that doesn't leave you anywhere to go, and it really doesn't teach you anything. But I'm also asking you to be sensitive as well. Remember that critique does not mean criticism. You can say there are some things that I would like to see more of, but you can always couch it in a phrase like, this texture is so fascinating, these colors are really interesting. It would be really cool to see more of that kind of texture, that play of color along these edges as well. Or I like what you've done with the siding of your house. I think that this is fascinating. It would be really interesting to see that something similar but of a different color on the roof, for example. So these comments don't need to be very long. I would like them to be 2, 3, 4 sentences long, but I would like them to be thoughtful and considerate. We're not out to hurt anybody, and making somebody else look bad never makes ourselves look better. But in this class, we can always find things to comment on to help other students. And what's fascinating, when you build that atmosphere up, everybody wants to help you in turn. I did mention in emails that we do have a YouTube channel for this class. It's for the 3D courses that I teach specifically, and each subsequent class will be adding to it. So I will be sending you links to the different meetings that we have. And also when you do your artistic critique in step 3 of that module, You'll need to do a very short artistic critique of one of your own works, and then also of a work of somebody else in the class. The easiest way to do this is to do a voiceover on a screen of your computer where you are showing an image of the artwork that you're critiquing. And you just record your voice as you're showing that artwork. It shouldn't take more than 2 or 3 minutes, and then you send the video in a MOV, WAV, or MP4 file directly to me through email or Dropbox, and then I will upload it onto our YouTube channel. When you do your artistic research, the concentrated research on the one artist that you pick, that will be in the form of a PowerPoint with about 6 or 8 slides. It'll take 5 to 8 minutes for you to narrate through. And again, that file, where nobody will see you, they'll just see the slides and hear your voice, that file will also be sent to me in the same, one of those same 3 formats, the MOV, WAV, or MP4 file. Now, it's very important as well. I've had some confusion before. The research artists that you pick from that list of 75 will be separate from the research paper, not research paper, I'm sorry, the research essay that you write for each of the 6 project modules. In that, you will look and see that there is a very specific selection of paragraphs that is needed, and that will be from the list of artists in the research section of that particular module. Like module 1 is about photography-based sculpture, and that the artists will include Andy Goldsworthy and Sandy Scogland, and there's a few others in there as well. It seems like the easiest way for people to write that short essay is to copy the descriptions of the paragraphs into their Word document and use that as a heading for each of the paragraphs that they write. I'm going to do a screen share really quick here so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's see if I can find this really fast. It's going to take me just a moment here. Okay. Okay, I hope you can see this. I'm on Research 1 in Module 1, and here it has a list of a number of different artists, and each of them have a couple short videos. Here's Andy Goldsworthy. Here's Sandy Scogland. Some of the other artists are James Casimir, Thomas Allen, and Isaac Cordell, and Slinkachu. So these are several different artists. And when you go to the next portion of the module, where you start writing the artist review section, just go through here, and here it says prompt for artist review. It has 3 paragraphs. And paragraph 1, describe what you learned from working with this group of artists. Articulate, in paragraph 2, articulate which artist's work you like the most and why. Paragraph 3, list and give a brief explanation of the ways the artist you like the most went about involving the viewer. Please identify at least 4 methods used. Now, paragraph needs to have 3 sentences in it, and if you have that heading at the beginning of each of those paragraphs or over each paragraph, and use that as the prompt to help you write that paragraph, then you'll be successful. It'll work out really well. I'm sorry, I don't know if I shared the screen properly or not. If I didn't, then ask me again on the meeting on Monday, and we'll take care of that. And I'll show you that screen again. So the artist review, again, is only for the artists within that module, and it is not dealing with all the artists on that list of 75. Now the record, I should tell you that the record for going through that list of 75 artists right now as it stands is 44 minutes. It was done by a 12-year-old who was the son of one of the students taking the class. So if you guys want to use that as a standard, That'd be great. The code words for this meeting are going to be, and I will usually, when I do the code words, I'll space them out throughout. I'm just going to list all three of the code words here now. So when you email me and tell me that you watched this, you can include all three of them. The three code words are kumquat, flabbergast, and scissors. So each of the videos that we do when we have class meetings will have three code words in them. And to show me that you've listened to it, all you need to do is email me and tell me what those three code words were. The first project that we're dealing with is project-based photography. I'm going to talk about it really briefly and then we'll be done. And I wanted to show you just a couple different examples. I'm going to share my screen again. Let's hope that this works this time. All right, we should have the it says discussion 1, sculpture-based photography. On each of these, when you are done photographing your houses, what you'll need to do is post them on the discussion board, and then also you'll need to go back and comment on other people's postings. A lot of the times I will see that you've posted something, I'll go through, and if one half is done and not the other, I'll give half the points, and then I'll just send an email asking you to send me some sort of notification so that you know to let me know when the other part is posted. Like if you've already commented but haven't put your own photos on, or if you put photos on but haven't commented yet. Let's see, I'm going to try to get, I wonder why. Okay, I'm going to stop presenting so I can change screens really quick. And then I'm going to do the screen share again. Each of you have in those kits several different file folders and masking tape and some knives and scissors and things like that. This, I think, is a fascinating website, and it's linked to in the project description. This shows several examples of little houses. One of the reasons why I like this is we're going to be taking these around and photographing them. So think about that as you make this. Consider making something that has windows in it and has some texture on it so that the light will do different things to it. People have actually used shredded bark before for a roof, for example, and cotton for something like appearance of smoke coming out of the chimney. Having windows in it with tissue paper over them do different things with the light that are fascinating. Having different textures on it will cast different shadows. These only need to be about 6 inches high in the longest dimension, and you can make pretty much whatever you want to. There's different patterns that you can get online. I would prefer that you not print something out in color and just do that. I would prefer that you kind of design your own, and you can use one of those models for like a little gingerbread house or a house card that somebody can fold up, and use those one of those file folders to make the house. I've done things like tear masking tape down the center lengthwise and use that for overlapping it for kind of siding on a house or for roofing. I've also folded masking tape at the edge so that it has kind of a shingle effect. But I want you to make something that it doesn't have to be pretty, but it does need to be sturdy. And it does need to have a bottom, a top, and sides. And it needs to be interesting enough that you can take it in 5 different locations, 5 different settings of light, and make interesting photos, or at least photos that are interesting to you. One student that I've had in the past made a little house, set up a diorama, and then their different views were just walking around the diorama. That does not count. I would, I've, I'm sorry, the successful students have done things like taking these on walks, taking them with them when they've traveled around, gone to work, set them up in different areas, like in the kitchen at work or in a tree limb next to a little river. Look at the work of Slinkachoo, and that will give you some ideas of where you can set these and put them. I really like this green apple house with the straw coming out. I think that's kind of cool. But these are all really kind of fun ideas. You don't have to animate them like that, but go through this website and look at it and see what kind of ideas that you can come up with yourself. I think that would be a lot of fun. So the process will be make one of these houses in the next couple days, take photos of it over the weekend, and by Sunday, post some of these photos onto the discussion board. And then Monday, you should be able to go back and start making comments on other people's. Refer to that Tools of Artistic Critique sheet and pay attention to the questions and answer or address one or two of those questions and talk about it in your comments. Again, the comment should be 2, 3, 4 sentences, not much longer than that, and hopefully not any shorter than that. You will not get full credit for making comments like groovy. Sadly, that's one of my favorite words, but it really doesn't help when we do these kinds of critiques and comments on other people's work. So definitely explore this website, give it some thought, think about it, and see what you can come up with. The whole part of the process, including the writing of the paper and everything, should be about 10 hours, and you'll put that in your work log. I see that the house itself will probably take you about 3 hours to design and build, and then the rest of the time will be taking the quiz, watching the videos, and then driving around to different areas and taking several different photos. If you are done with your house and you only spent 45 minutes, go back and make it interesting. Put some more time into it. If you feel that you're done with the photos and you still have another couple hours to kill, go and think of different areas that you could take photos in, different times of the day, different shots, different perspectives that you haven't done already, and use at that time. Remember, we need to spend about 10 hours on this. And on Monday, I will go over the quiz, and hopefully everybody will have, by that time, their textbooks. And if not, we will talk about things during the quiz, but I would like everybody, as soon as you get your textbook, even if you already told me, just drop me a line and let me know through email that you have your textbook for sure. And I will I have little marks in my book. I'm very old school. In addition to stuff on Canvas, I also use stuff in just a traditional grading book like that. And as soon as you let me know, I will mark down that you have your book. I know that almost everybody has their book coming. One person told me today, if you don't already have your book, think about this. On Facebook Marketplace, they found one for only, I think it was $4. So if you don't have your book yet, do that. Do not spend more than 35 bucks getting this thing. I know that on Amazon, they do have the Amazon Prime thing, and that one of the prices that I saw was like 581 bucks or something ridiculous like that. Do not do that. You can rent it for $25 to $35 from a couple different sites. If you have found a really cool site where you can get it cheap, please drop me a line, let me know right away, and I will email that to everybody so they can find it too. I hope this has answered some of the questions. Before you email me and ask questions about this, please go through the module. And the reason why I would like you to do that is that if you ask me very specific questions that are not covered in the module and reference the module, that really helps me to make the module better for the next students, and in addition to answering your question. Thank you very much for choosing to take this class. This is an exciting class. I know it's going to be difficult for many people, and I hope to make the process as painless as possible. I can be a little bit sarcastic. I have actually made students cry unintentionally before. I try really hard not to do that. When I want to share a story with you really quick. Um, Once upon a time, there was a bird that waited just a little bit too long to fly south for the winter. It was getting really, really cold, and he was freezing. He finally collapsed in a farmyard, and feeling the cold ground, he started losing sensation in his limbs, and he knew he was going to freeze to death. A cow ambled by, saw this little bird freezing to death, and just pooped on him. The bird thought that was just devastating, but then he realized that the warmth of the cow dropping actually was saving his life. A little while later, a cat came by, said, "Oh, you look so dirty. Would you mind if I cleaned you up?" And the bird said, "No, go for it. I'm comfortable now. We're fine." So the cat took the little bird over to a pond, tapped through the ice, and washed the bird. And as soon as the bird was completely clean, the cat ate it. The moral of the story is, just because somebody dumps on your head doesn't mean they're your enemy, and just because they pull you out doesn't mean they're your friend. What I mean by this is we will make comments that are not intended to be hurtful, and please go out of your way not to be offended. Do everything you can not to be offended. Most of the time when we take offense from something that is unintentional, it's because we only receive half or less of the context with which the comment was intended. And please keep that in mind. And I will keep that in mind as well. I'll try very hard not to be offended when you write rude and scathing emails to me, which I hope you don't do. And keep in mind, I will do everything I can to be helpful in the comments that I give. It does really help, though, if before you ask questions about a module, read through the whole module, go through it as much as possible, and then ask for clarifying questions. I have had students where it's obvious that they did not look at the module at all before asking questions, and that really doesn't help. The other thing I would strongly suggest is don't go through the module backwards. Go through it in the order that it's in, because that will really help you to learn what you need to learn to do, for example, the best house that you can make for this photography project. Moving forward, about every 5 days or so, I will publish another module, and so you can kind of see and anticipate what's going on. And every Monday, we will talk about the module. I will answer questions. I'll go through the quiz, and then every Thursday, we'll answer questions as you get ready to do the final push over the weekend of whatever it is that you're working on. I remind you as well that the great majority of the A students will usually spend between 16 to 18 hours a week on this particular course. That can seem a little bit daunting, but remember, we're putting a semester's worth of work into less than half the time. Usually at this point in our meetings, I ask if there's any questions. I'll be particularly self-serving right now because I would just be listening to silence afterwards. So please, when you do have questions, email me. I also send out my cell phone number. Please text that, and I will text back as soon as I can. And if you need any help with anything, please make sure and let me know. I look forward to working with all of you, and I'm really excited to see what you come up with over the next couple months. So thank you so much for picking this class and being online with me this term.